to matters financial and geopolitical from the frontier. Thank you for stopping by. I trust the weekend was good. I'd like to first of all thank Bonnie Tunya for my Monday morning open exchange with him when we spoke about the Brexit, the Euro, Africa and all things in between. And it was most enjoyable. Thank you, Bonnie. Macro thoughts. Well, where do we start? Let me start with two tweets from Alexis Tsipras. Some people think that matters in Greece are a game. The dignity of our people is no game, he said. Neither the use of threats and blackmail nor trying to incite panic will change the will of the Greek people to live with dignity, he said. I wrote the following, Greece to unravel faster after referendum call. The Greek unravelling has had a slow motion feel to it until last Friday. It reminded me of the time I had gone to the National Theatre to watch Oresteia, a trilogy of Greek tragedies written by Aeschylus concerning the end of the curse on the house of Atreus. The first play in the trilogy, Agamemnon, details the homecoming of Agamemnon, king of Argos, from the Trojan War. Waiting for him is his wife, Clytemnestra, who has been planning his murder, partly as revenge for the sacrifice of their daughter, Iphigenia, and partly because in the 10 years of Agamemnon's absence, Clytemnestra has entered into an adulterous relationship with Aegisthus, Agamemnon's cousin. The National Theatre production took place over 6 hours, and in many respects the Greek unravelling from the Euro project has dulled our senses and anaesthetised the markets a little, like the Oresteia did mine. The shock decision of Tsipras to call a snap referendum on July 5 has now speeded up the tape. Since the imposition of austerity in 2010, GDP has fallen by 25% and is down 31% since the start of the crisis in 2008. Currently, the Greek unemployment rate is 25%, youth unemployment is more than 50%, happiness measures collapsed since austerity began, and now the Greeks are the most miserable in the OECD. Greek people will survive, Tsipras told Merkel in a call the Greek government said. It's not a question of waiting to see what might happen on Monday. In terms of crisis, the crisis has commenced, said Ireland's Michael Noonan. In the coming days, Greece will experience acute difficulties. This is the German Finance Minister Wolfgang Schäuble. The IMF chief, Christine Lagarde, told the BBC late on Saturday that, legally speaking, the referendum will relate to proposals and arrangements that are no longer valid. Greece is due to make a payment to the IMF of about 1.5 billion euros. If that is missed, Greece no longer has access to funding, said Madame Lagarde. There is a massive bank run going on with about a fifth of Greek ATMs out of cash. That was as of Saturday evening. Many folks, including me, believe that the euro straitjacket was slowly asphyxiating Greece, and a return to the drachma with a massive devaluation might well reboot Greece. Indeed, between 1950 and the oil crisis of 1973, Greece was Europe's fastest growing economy, with growth rates of 7% a year. This period was dubbed the Greek economic miracle. Tsipras is hoping he can throw Merkel over and return Greece to those glory days. The situation has some very interesting geopolitical angles as well. Tsipras has visited Putin at least twice over the past 4 weeks. If Greece exits the euro, it might well prove a Trojan horse with respect to Russia, and China might lean in as well. On January the 12th, my article was headlined "The Year of G2 as Europe Off Balance," and I wrote, "The euro-dollar exchange rate is headed to parity and even lower in 2015. And I think this unravelling will happen this year and a lot more quickly than a lot of people had predicted. Italian Prime Minister Matteo Renzi said this about the migrant crisis and some of his European partners. Do as you like. If this is your idea of Europe, keep it to yourself. You do not deserve to call yourself Europe, he said. Greece represents just 2% of the European project. However, the concern is that the infection is not quarantined and spreads. On that note, let me put up a photograph of the program for the Oresteia for the very year that I went to see it at the National Theatre, 1983, I think. Holger Scheipitz, euro falling on Greece since volatility climbing most since 2008. Eric Scott Hunsader, chart of 4 million US stock trades in the last 15 minutes on Friday. Makes an interesting visual image. Home Thoughts, Charlie Mayhew tweeted Tusk Safaricom Marathon. Lovely photograph. You can see we weren't there this year, we were there last year. It really is a wonderful and remarkable event. Terry Wanderi, Nairobi from a rooftop. It's a pretty good picture too. I liked it. Globe Pics, Pacific Coast Highway, California. When we first got married, Nisha drove a car and we drove down that highway. It really is an extraordinarily exhilarating experience. You feel you're at the end of the world. Bad news, Discovery Space Falcon 9 rocket exploded minutes after liftoff. Took me back to Thomas Pynchon, Gravity's Rainbow, as screaming comes across the sky. On the 12th of Jan, on that article I wrote, Europe Off Balance, I wrote about the arrival of the asymmetric threat on the streets of Paris being deeply unsettling and saying will surely keep Europe and France in particular off balance. And I said it presaged a new normal. We all understand the language of the media as much the Kouachi brothers and Amedi Koulibaly and his crossbow-toting partner Hayat Boumediene were so proficient at taking over the world's attention. And of course we had a similar incident on Friday. The man suspected of an attack on a factory in France sent a selfie where he posed with the severed head of his boss, security sources say. The Telegraph tweeted a photograph of the Tunisia gunman pictured stalking the beach before opening fire on tourists. That took me back to something I'd written on the 29th of April last year, The Brothers Sanéa, a long tale. And I referenced Albert Camus' L'Étranger, in which Camus says, the Byronic hero incapable of love or capable only of an impossible love suffers endlessly. He is solitary, languid, his condition exhausts him. If he wants to feel alive, it must be in the terrible exaltation of a brief and destructive action. I think it applies to these sorts of characters. I'll put up an image of The Stranger from 1946 by Albert Camus. Joseph Willits tweeted, Kuwait says the Shia mosque suicide bomber was Saudi. Saudi Arabia is the petri dish for these extremists. Adam Curtis, I went back to Odierism and Non-Linear War, which is really a remarkable little vignette about the world as we find it. International markets, Schulden sooner, Cyprus gambles Greece, the world may be about to face the biggest default in history. Let's see how that plays out. Greece has ordered its banks closed and has imposed capital controls to stem deposit flight. Move comes after the ECB limits level of emergency loans available for Greek banks to Friday's level. Interesting piece in Bloomberg with 61 seconds in a minute. Markets brace for trouble. On June the 30th, time will stand still just for a second, a leap second. Since 1967, when clocks went atomic, human timekeeping has been independent of the Earth's rotation. The problem is the planet is slowing down and clocks are not. So every few years, to get everything back in sync, scientists add a second, as they will be doing on June the 30th. Greek yields jumped by 370 basis points to 14.55%, which is the biggest increase since at least 1998. Currency markets, the euro got as low as 109.52, but is now at 110.73. Japanese yen is at 122.88. The Swissy, when I checked last, was 0.9384. The pound is at 156.90. The Aussie is around 0.7650. And then the South African rand has also moved higher to 12.30. I think the euro will, after this initial bounce, head back below 110, and I think eventually to parity. I'll put up a 3-month chart of the dollar index. I think, there's a lot of noise and interference right now, but it's headed higher. Euro dollar, let me put up a 3-month chart of that, 110.76 last. And dollar yen, safe haven bid takes it to 122.85. Gold, we're now trading at 11.78, and if it can't bounce under these conditions, it's never going to bounce. Let me put up a 3-month chart. Crude oil below $59, but it's been in this range, which has really been from 58 to about 63. The Shanghai Composite Index dropped 3.3% to 4,053, taking declines from its June 12 peak to more than 20% and ending China's longest ever bull market. The gauge swung between a loss of 7.6% and a gain of 2.5% in Monday trading, with the point move being the largest since 1992. Coming to Africa, the US is mulling help for Africa to hunt down wildlife poachers. US intelligence agencies are considering whether to provide information, analysis, and possibly tactical lessons to African governments about how to attack wildlife poaching networks, according to a top official. We are looking for opportunities where we can contribute. Terence Ford, the National Intelligence Manager for Africa and the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, James Clapper. We have a role to play in this, so we're trying to do that. Infrared and photographic imagery from satellites and other data could help locate and track herds of animals and bands of poachers. And wildlife rangers would benefit from better equipment by adapting some of the techniques, tactics and procedures used by military intelligence officers, said Ford and other US officials. The tools used to understand and defeat these networks can be shared with governments and wildlife services. These include the methods known collectively as geospatial intelligence, or GeoInt, used to analyze, correlate, disseminate large amounts of data to understand relationships that are not immediately evident. That can only be a good thing. The African Union says the Burundi election is not free or fair, and also, furthermore, the speaker has fled as well. 4th of May, I wrote a piece, Eyes on Burundi and Spillover Risks. Most of that still applies. Julia Steers tweeted, polls open but so far quiet in Musaga neighborhood of Bujumbura. I spoke about this previously when I said, as we look around the world today, we see a battle for the streets of Bujumbura to the streets of Baltimore. Julia again tweeted another photograph of the polls being open but very little activity. That was early this morning. I take you back to a piece I wrote in November last year, Ouagadougou's signal to sub-Saharan Africa, when I said, what's clear is that a very young, very informed, very connected African youth demographic, many characterize this as a demographic dividend, which for beautiful Blaise turned into a demographic terminator, is set to alter the existing equilibrium between the rulers and the subjects, and a rebalancing has begun. I'll put up a photograph of Burundian students jumping over the fence of the US Embassy in Bujumbura. The New York Times is talking of grenades, fear and uncertainty become routine as election nears. Gunmen burnt election material at Burundi polling station days ahead of the vote. Go back to a comment from Ouagadougou, a guy called Barrow. They cannot imprison hope. They will fail. Youth will continue to mobilize. South African all shares up 5.88% this year. I like this tweet from Katie's Palace Bar, Santon Lights and Winter Nights. Dollar rand when I looked last 12.30. Egyptian EGX30 down 4.649% so far this year. Nigeria all share down 5.205% this year. The Naira, which was at 198.50 on the interbank market, trading at 220 on the black market in Lagos. Ghana Stock Exchange Composite Index is up 4.789%. Jeffrey York of the Globe and Mail has written a very interesting and thorough article about Kenya retail thriving in the heart of Kenya as tourist economy suffers. Getting into East Africa's biggest shopping mall is no easy matter. Guards block your car, fling open the doors, rummage through the trunk, glove compartment, check beneath your car with a bomb-detecting mirror before you're finally granted entry to the parking garage. Visitors suffer a similar gauntlet at Nairobi's main airport. Attacks have devastated Kenya's tourism industry, triggering the loss of an estimated 60,000 jobs in coastal resorts alone. Yet, the retail sector is thriving despite Westgate and other attacks. Garden City Mall, 33,000 square meters of shopping, opened its doors in late May, shoppers flocking through its doors. Among the biggest advantages of the $250 million mall is its location on an 8-lane highway. Super deals on the super highways, say the sales tags on discount TV sets. The growing middle class is driving this, as just in Melbourne. I think you'll see the top end of retail coming here too. Later this year, Garden City will lose its regional leadership to an even bigger mall, Two Rivers, where Carrefour is coming. A lot of people are quite excited. July the 1st, Westgate Mall itself is scheduled to open less than 2 years after the attack by Al-Shabaab gunmen that killed 67 people. While most of its shops won't be ready for business by then, Westgate's reopening will be a rebirth for the trendsetter of Kenya's retail sector. Westgate will attract people, I said. Kenyans have very short memories. I can't tell you the number of big retail brands that have contacted me and asked how they can enter. Interest is sky high, and it is. Barack Obama due to visit Nairobi next month to attend an entrepreneurship summit. World Bank forecasts 6% growth for Kenya this year, followed by 6.6% next year. Yet the boom in retail and infrastructure is undermined by bad news in two of Kenya's most crucial sectors, the energy sector jeopardized by low global oil prices and a delayed pipeline, and the tourism sector severely damaged by the terrorist attacks and a series of travel warnings by Western governments, including Canada. Tourism was already declining last year, but now the decline is gathering speed. Kenya's visitor numbers dropped by 25% in the first 5 months of this year. They're hoping for some kind of rebound since the UK in particular lifted some travel advisories. Tourism on the coast is dead, completely dead, said Ahmed Shi Ahmed, a tour guide at Fort Jesus. The economy of the whole region is flat on the ground. People like me are suffering a lot. Coupled with the tourism crisis and new questions about Kenya's nascent oil boom, in which Vancouver-based Africa Oil is a 50% owner in the main project, the slump in global prices is making it harder to raise money for oil, and uncertainty is compounded by a delayed decision on a crucial oil pipeline. Before the oil can be developed, Kenya and Uganda must agree on the pipeline to a planned export terminal on the coast near Lamu. Expected to be the world's longest buried and heated oil pipeline with 800 kilometers in Kenya alone. Terrorism could pose a threat to the pipeline as it passes close to the Somali border near Lamu. The project, accompanied by a road and rail link, was first mooted nearly 15 years ago, yet its route is still undecided. We are hoping there will be a pipeline decision imminently, Africa Oil Vice President of External Relations Alex Budden said in an interview in Nairobi. I said that the Lamu pipeline and terminal project is unlikely to proceed if the price of oil remains low until we see a sustained recovery to $80 a barrel. I think all of this is dead in the water. I do. The CMA is moving to enforce foreign caps and share sale. The Capital Markets Authority has ordered stockbrokers not to process any further transactions for foreigners wanting to buy into companies already owned 75% or more by non-residents. BAT and Total Kenya. BAT is 76.14%, Total Kenya is 94.19%. Nairobi All Share is down 0.233% this year. The NSE 20 is down 5.912% this year, but is up 65.7 points since closing at a 2015 low on the 10th of June. Going back to the US, Ford and Ali praised a new counter-poaching partnership in Kenya called Ten Boma. Announced in March by the Kenyan Environment Ministry and the Welfare Fund, Ten Boma intends to attack poaching networks by using better armed Kenya Wildlife Service rangers and intense analysis of unclassified satellite imagery to stop poachers before animals are killed. And on that note, I'll put up a photograph of 2 male rhinos that I took last year when I was at the Level Marathon. Mumia Sugar rallied 21.62% last week. I expect it to push on from there. Kenya Airways has been following in the slipstream. Williamson Tea is up 68.54% now year to date. Sasini Tea is plus 28.01% year to date. Safaricom unchanged at 16.10. Has held that 16 level throughout June, which is a bullish signal. Kenya Airways up 2.24% to 685. Equity Group was the most actively traded share on Friday. It's of course announced entry into DR Congo. There's strong price support at these levels. And Canal Cobalt has had a lot of activity on it lately. Now remember, if you want to follow the stock market, just register on rich.co.ke, get a password, and then go to Rich Live. If you want to see the whole thing, just go to a normal board. If you want to check into a specific stock, go to the expert board. And it's all free. Once again, thank you.